Okay, everybody. For those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Forrest, and it's go time. Now, before we get going here, I'm going to ask if everybody can stay off of this raised up stage area here. This way, nobody blocks the display and gives me a little room to move around for the whole presentation hosting thing. Also, if I can direct your attention to the menu wheel in your lower left, you're going to notice at the very top of this is a microphone icon. Then a microphone icon is clear. That means that we're not going to be able to hear what's happening. We can hear what's happening in your environment. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that to red. Now that it is red, that means you're muted, and we won't be able to hear you guys. So if somebody comes into your space and says, "Hey, are you still on that thing?" Feel free to answer them because we're not going to hear that. Or maybe you have a dog that's barking in the background. Don't worry, you won't face social ruin back at the campfire by becoming known as the avatar that started barking during its go time. Now, you also notice a pink smiley emoji in your menu there. And when you press on it, you're going to have a variety of options with which to express yourself right in front of you on your emoji panel. Like if I say something really deep and meaningful, and you feel it building up inside, you can just let it out, let it flow. Maybe I got some backup dancers backstage, right? And they come out, we break into, it's go time the musical. You can show how impressed you are by throwing the applause that I live for, and take a moment, drink, and all in. Feels good. All right. So if I ask you guys a yes or no question, you can say yes by smiling like this. You can say no by frowning like this. Or if I say something funny, you can show that you're laughing by doing this silly face emoji here. If you guys have a question, this is not how you act. We'll be taking questions at the end. If you do this, this is how you get my attention if something's gone wrong. Like maybe I'm waving my hands around a lot and it looks like I'm talking, but you guys can't hear anything. That's the kind of thing we're going to want to know about. Or maybe the display bursts into flames. It actually happened one time because our mods have a good sense of humor, and I made the mistake of giving them Terraform. I have not made that mistake since. But yeah, so they set the stage on fire. And if that were to happen, and it's happening behind me, you guys could tell me by doing that, like by raising up the hand like that. But if I see one of these hands going, I'm just going to keep on going. But if I see like 5 of you doing it once, I know something's wrong that I need to address. Okay, now Go Time is an event for Oculus Go users, but all are welcome. So if you're on another device, feel free to hang out. You may pick up some useful tips and tricks that'll help our, help our Go community in Altspace. If new Go users coming in all the time, all kind of stuff. All right, so now what we want to do here is, let's see, yeah, there we go. Okay, so now if you're on an Oculus Go, you're going to face some challenges in Altspace. All right, for myself, I've actually speaking of challenges, I've been in bed for about the past 2 years due to a medical condition. And when I got my Go, I was super excited. I couldn't wait to get this thing on. Do you guys remember what that felt like? The very first time you put on a VR headset and you felt like you were being transported to another world? Remember that? Right? It's a magical experience. So I put mine on. I've been reading about Altspace for a while, so this was my first stop. And I come in, I step out of that load screen for the first time, right? And I look up, and I looked into the sky, and that sky looked a lot like what I remember the sky looking like. And I was super grateful for this. I was so grateful I started volunteering for Altspace right away. But when I did, I had problems, right? Like the very first thing was, I kept running out of power all the time, and I wouldn't be able to make it through an entire event. Toward the end, I just disappeared because my battery would die on me. And I started asking around. I was like, there's got to be a way I can improve this. So I started asking, how do I make my device more reliable in Altspace? And I heard some things, right? Like, for example, I heard that, I wouldn't be able to work this laser pointer on an Oculus Go, right? And that turned out to not be true. Turns out I could, right? I was also told that I wouldn't be able to work these slides here, all right? And that turned out to not be true, too. And you know what? I was told that despite having a background presenting material like that, my device wasn't reliable enough for me to host events. And that turned out to not be true also. And that told me that there was a huge disconnect between, the perception of what, people thought of what it was like to be on an Oculus Go, to be on a mobile device like that, versus the reality of actually being on one. All right. So, I started to investigate, started to look around and check it out, and I found there's 2 paths you can take to improve your experience. And some of this stuff we're going to go over today, we're going to improve your experience before you leave today. You can start with the device you already have on your head. You can also upgrade your experience to exceed the limitations of your device. And those of you who have been here before know I can't stand this term, right? Because if somebody tells you every day, listen, I hate your shirt, I don't like your shirt. They tell you that every day, you're going to start thinking it's not your shirt they don't like, right? And it turns out that, listen, you're not your device any more than you are your house or your car. And when you hear terms like weaker device, lesser device, when you hear these terms being thrown around, it doesn't feel too good. It's important to remember that there's another word that gets tossed around in Altspace a lot, and that's community. You, the individual, make up that community, not your device. So it's important to remember that. You're not your house, you're not your car, you're not your headset, you're you, all right? And the device is just a vehicle that brings you in here. All right, now let's get started with the device you have on your head. All right, now you may not realize this, but your device loses power even when it's not in use. All right, when it's checking for firmware updates, when it's checking for app updates, maybe it's got a pen pal on the other side of the world. Maybe your headset has a whole secret life you don't know anything about, right? So, so while it's doing all this, it takes, drains power. So what can happen is, what you're going to want to do, your chief responsibility is to make sure that your battery is as close to 100% as you can get it at all times. Right. This means a little advanced planning on your part. And the reason for it is, like, listen, if you come into Altspace and you've got a 20% battery power, right, you're going to notice your screen flickers. It's not going to perform as well. Right. So about an hour event, like, let's say, you're back out in the real world, and you're at altvr.com and you're looking at the event schedule and you think, what am I going to do tonight? How am I going to spend my time? And you see there's an event on tonight called Go Time, and you've heard things about the host, or he's really dynamic, you heard he's got this fantastic hair, and you've heard he's got this shirt that you're starting to see everywhere. Well, what you can do is you charge your device, you plug it in about an hour before the event begins, right? To ensure that you're topped off at 100% when you first come into Altspace. And when you do come into Altspace, right, you're going to notice that, how important body language is in here, right? When you first start to put on the headset, right? Actually, wait, I skipped ahead there. Right. One more thing you got to do when you first put that headset on. Right. You're going to notice that when you turn your headset on, it's got that middle power button right in the middle there. Well, you may not realize this, but if you press, don't do this now, because if it disappears, I'm going to feel it. But if you press and hold that button down for about 3 or 4 seconds, you're going to get these 3 buttons that appear in the head, appear in front of you, like right there. Right. And the middle button's going to say restart. If you press on that, it's going to clear out all these temporary files. It's going to all the firmware updates, all the app updates. It's basically going to make sure you start out fresh. I like to think of it as clearing my mind before I come in. Right. So you hold that down, you press restart, and you do this every time you start your headset. Right. And then you step into the load screen, you come into Altspace. And when you get there, this bit I started on before, you may have noticed what an important role body language plays in Altspace. Right. Like if you're at an event like this and a moderator comes up to you and goes, like this, and they start shaking their head back and forth, that means don't do that thing. Right. Or maybe, somebody comes up on stage here and I'm like this, I'm going, waving my hand like this, going, get off my stage. Right. Well, what happens is sometimes what's going to happen is that your real world hand might be right here, but your avatar's hand might be right up here. So when I go to wave my hand to get off my stage, all you guys are seeing is me waving my hand around like this, going, hey, everybody, welcome to Go Time. And that's totally not what I'm saying. Right. I'm saying, stay off the stage, pretty professional. Right. So what you can do is to fix this is if you are looking straight ahead. Right now, you're going to have, notice on your controller, you have the trackpad, and below that is a button, and below that is a button. If you're looking straight ahead and you hold your hand out straight in front of you, right, and you were to press that bottom button on your controller, don't press it one time, because if you do, you get knocked right out of Altspace. That's like an eject button, and you have an option there to quit or resume. If you press this by accident, that's great, because you can just hit resume, come right back in. But this button does something else. If you look straight ahead and you hold out your hand, and this you can do now, if you press and hold that bottom button for about 3 seconds, you're going to see this white circle spin in the air in front of you, and your hand is going to snap right into place, right? And when it does, take a good look at your hand and ask yourself, is this where my hand is in the real world? If it is, then you're good, right? If it's not, then do it again for as long as it takes for you to feel comfortable. And only you can determine what feels comfortable for you. Now, occasionally in Altspace, you're going to notice that your main menu wheel moves around a bit. Sometimes it'll move behind you. Sometimes it'll go right in front of you. And this can make you feel a little off balance when it happens. Right. Fortunately, it's important to remember that you have your main menu in your hand at all times. There's a button just below your trackpad, right? That middle button there. When you press that button, your main menu is going to open up, but it does something else. If you're looking straight ahead when you do this and you open your main menu by pressing that menu button, your menu is going to appear in front of you. Then you press it again, your menu will close. And when it's closed, as long as you're looking straight ahead, you're going to notice that your menu wheel and your space buttons, like the world editor, like host tools, sometimes raise hand, ask question, all those buttons there on the right with your avatar right in the middle, it's going to make you feel nice and balanced. Right. So if that happens where that moves around, just open that menu button with your controller and then close it again real quick while looking straight ahead, and that'll clear that right up. All right. Now you're also going to notice that, listen, when I would start running out of my battery power when I first started out on my Oculus Go, there was, one of the best pieces of advice I got was to turn my brightness down. All right. And the way you do this, right, and I didn't want to do it for the record, because I want to have the best graphic experience I possibly could have in Altspace. And to me, that meant having my brightness turned way up to like retina burning levels. I mean, it was kind of painful there in the beginning. So what I did was, very reluctantly, from the Oculus main menu, I went over to where it says settings, and then in the middle there, they had an area called brightness, and there's a big blue bar that appears. And what I would do is I would lower that bar down a little bit each time. Every time I came into Altspace, I turned that blue bar down a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then a little bit more, until eventually there was no more blue. And the brightness was completely off. I turned off the auto brightness, and I had it turned all the way off. And I came into Altspace, and I couldn't believe what I saw. There was a space where, for events I was helping out with, and there was this tree there where I learned how to moderate. And I walked up to that tree, and I couldn't believe it. I looked up at it, and it looked more real than anything I've ever seen in Altspace before. Like, it actually happened was the graphics actually got better by turning down the brightness. So if you turn down the brightness, you won't be disappointed. You're going to get better graphics, you're going to get better performance, but most importantly, your battery's going to last longer. And it was then I started to realize that people actually hung out after events. I didn't know that. But now I started to be able to do that, and I discovered a new problem I was starting to have: overheating. Now, listen, one of the main things where Go users get kind of a bad reputation is a phenomenon that happens. See, our microphones are very sensitive, and as the sound comes out of the straps, the microphone picks it up, and that sound is projected out into Altspace. Now, in Altspace, we can't hear the sounds that our avatars make. For example, I don't know what I sound like when I'm talking up here. Right? But I didn't know actually until we opened up our YouTube channel and I got to watch myself. If everybody wants to say hello to YouTube, we got the camera right up here. If you see, we got Raven Eye up there. If everybody wants to say hello to YouTube, just wave up at the camera. Hey YouTube, how's it going? Nice of you to join us. Very cool. All right. So, then I got an idea of what I sounded like, but we don't know what the sounds we're making. So let's say that you're a new Altspace user and you come into the campfire and you see a group of avatars talking over there in the corner. They're all over, hey, how's it going? How was your day? It's nice to see you again. Doofus, what's going on? Dino? Hey, Amy, what's going on? Hey, Hummingbird, thanks for joining us. And we're all talking, we're having a good time. And you're over here and you're walking up to them, right? You're coming along and you want to see what they're talking about, right? And all of a sudden, they stop talking and they turn and they face you, right? And then they come at you and they go, are you want to go? Are you want to go? That could be like really off-putting, right? But it turns out what they're experiencing is pretty off-putting too. What they're experiencing is they're standing there, they're talking with their friends. How was your day? What's going on? Did you hear about that thing that happened? I can't believe what that person said. And they turned around because they heard a sound, and the sound they heard was their own voice coming out of your avatar, right? So what happens is they're talking, and your ear straps are picking it up, goes in through your microphone, out through into Altspace, and it turns out it's really simple to manage this. On your headset, on the top left side, you're going to notice there are these two buttons, right? The leftmost button is the volume down button, and just next to that is a volume up button. And when you press either of them, these vertical bars appear in the air. Some will be solid, some will be clear. But what you're going for is you want 4 clear bars on the right side. That's 4 ticks away from the maximum. This will set the volume at such a level that it'll be harder for the microphone to pick it up. And you're going to notice at that point, people start being a little bit nicer to you because they're no longer hearing this echo coming out of your avatar, right? And now another thing you can do to take care of this, you can attach headphones to your device or even inexpensive earbuds. You can do those too. In my case, my wife went to the library to get an audiobook, right? And they gave her these free earbuds. She took them home, she showed me, and they suddenly disappeared, right? But good news, they reappeared a short time later, attached to my headset. They remain there to this day. And after that, the only sound coming out of my avatar was my own. Occasionally, you'd hear my wife saying, are you still on that thing? But we fixed that too. We got her own headset. Turns out she's a very gifted world builder, very helpful moderator, and we're very lucky to have her in here. All right, so you can do that. It's going to really change your experience. It's a great thing. But when I added that to the device, I started thinking, what else can I add to the device to improve my experience? And I came up with what I call a Go Plus experience. I call it this because, listen, I'd go into these heavy performant worlds, right? And I'd see avatars disappear in the ground or they'd vanish entirely as they crashed, and I'd still be standing there. And sometimes the screen would flicker a little bit. It got a little choppy. But for the most part, I found that my device was performing better than other Go users. And the reason for this was because I tried the products I'm about to discuss. But before I discuss them, I want to say these are not the only products that work. It's the ideas behind them. So if you want to try something else, do it, and come back and let us know how it goes. I love hearing success stories. If you do try something, come back and tell us about it. I like hearing how this stuff works out. All right. So but now when I talk about these, you're going to get the temptation to write this stuff down. It's pretty hard to write stuff down in VR, so we made it easy for you to follow them by providing links to you. And the way we did this was if you go to altvr.com and you'll see up on the upper left where it says channels, if you press on channels, you're going to see a long list of all these Altspace event channels. On the second page down toward the bottom, that's where we are. You'll see Ravenhall events, like it sits up on the sound booth there. And there you'll be able to join our Discord if you want to help us put on events like this. But more importantly, you're going to have products I'm going to talk about listed right on the left side if you want to try any of them. You also have the subscribe button. Now, this lets Altspace know how we're doing and lets them know you enjoy our content. And it makes us feel good whenever that number goes up. We don't get paid to do this, and it's just really nice whenever that goes up. I like to see that. So if you could press the subscribe button, it mean a lot to us. All right, now, what do we got here? We got the Anker Power Core battery pack. Now, this was meant to solve my battery issues. Now, Oculus says it's not a good idea to use your device while it's plugged in, but they say it's cool to use an external battery pack. So I started up there. This thing's supposed to last for about 16 hours, and I didn't think I'd ever need to spend 16 hours in VR because I like food, I like sleep. I've heard really good things about water. I'm thinking about trying some of that when I get out of here, right? And, so I figured that would be a good place to start. I'd also heard that people were having problems charging their device, right? And I think, listen, when you go in to plug your device in, you know how that wire it's real tight? I thought that like over time, that connection would get loosened and it wouldn't charge as effectively. So I came up with this, I got this MagSafe cable here. You put one of the tips in your device and you leave it there. The other end, the USB port goes into the battery, right? And then it's held in place by a magnetic connector. And it's a great safety feature too, because if you turn your head and it pulls on the wire, right? Your headset doesn't slide down with it, the wire just pops off. And you can put it back on without even taking your headset off. You just pick it up, hold it aside, and it thunks right into place. And people will hear that if you got your microphone open, you'll hear that thunk sound, right? And they'll go, what was that? And you look at them and you go, that's power. That's what that was, right? You don't have to say that. It doesn't make it work any better. I just thought it was fun to answer it that way. All right, so now, also, once I had this, all my power issues were gone, but I had a new problem. I started overheating all the time. Now, the faceplate on the Oculus Go is installed by hand, right? So people have different experiences with it. Some people overheat like every half hour. Some people overheat every 2 minutes, right? I knew one guy that was every 2 minutes. Actually, the first Go time we ever had, there was a guy there who said that like his headset actually become melted, like it deformed it. I got pushed in because it got so hot, right? And so, this is kind of an issue, and some lucky if you never overheat at all. For me, it was about every 20 minutes, right? And there's an event in Altspace, meditation event, in this cool space, right? They got on top of a mountain, you got all this like sunlight coming down through fog, you got bowls with smoke coming out of it. It's a really nice space. And for whatever reason, I would always overheat 20 minutes into it, exactly. And on the day I ordered this fan, because I heard some people that have been using ice packs, right? And they put ice packs on their faceplate. Don't do this, right? Because it creates condensation. Water and electricity are not typically a good mix, especially when it's on your face, right? I know a few people that actually went through more than one device doing this, right? Turns out, though, there's an easier way. What you can do is you get this AC Infinity USB mini fan. It's really small. It fits in the palm of your hand. Super cheap, too. It's only about $10 US. The cable is about $7 US. The most expensive thing is the battery pack. It's about $50, $60 US. And it comes in different sizes and capacities, even different colors, I'm told. So you can, find what works for you. But this fan arrives on the day that I was supposed to moderate this meditation event. And it's got the silver part, and I had to make sure that that was facing the faceplate. So my wife had these hair bands, so I got these, so I've heard some people use string too, but I used these hair bands, and I stuck them, to my head straps here, and I crossed them over and wrapped the other side around those round rubber feet on it. And, put it on there. And if you ever seen Star Trek, the Borg, I felt like that because I had all these wires coming down from this, my side of my headset. So much for being mobile, right? So I had all these wires down there. And I come into Altspace and I go into a meditation event and I walk up to the host, Jeremy, super nice guy. And I ask him, hey, can you hear me? Can you hear this fan I got going? I put it on the lowest setting. He says, not at all. Right? It's whisper quiet. He couldn't hear it. Thought that was great. So I turned it up to medium. I said, how about now? He says, well, I can kind of hear it, but it's not that bad. So I turned up the full blast, and before I could even ask, he says, well, I can definitely hear that. It sounds like you're in a wind tunnel. And I'm like, okay. So to play it safe, I turned it down to the lowest setting. Spoiler alert, I never had to turn it up again. I went through the meditation event, 20 minutes in where I usually overheat. I didn't overheat. I made it through the entire event, right? So to find out where the line was, I went to another event. 2 events in a row, didn't overheat once. So I went to another event. 3 events in a row, didn't overheat one time. Right? So it looked like I'd solved it. I went back to my home space. I hung out with my friends for a little while. And for the very first time, I left Altspace by choice. Not because I had to. I didn't leave Altspace because I was overheating. I didn't leave Altspace because I ran out of power. I left because I actually wanted to. And it was the first time that ever happened, and it wouldn't be the last. After that, I started moderating. I started hosting events. I got super involved. And you can too, right? It's just a matter of hooking up a few things to your device so it becomes super reliable. All right. I can't recommend doing this stuff enough. All right. Now, that didn't mean there weren't still problems. And these problems can be managed. All right. These are more irritations than they are unstoppable problems. The first one I'm talking about is a movement issue. Like, let's say I go to turn to the left to say something to Carter here, but instead of turning left, I go straight. Right. And I think that was weird. So I go to say something to Peter about it on my right, but instead of turning right, I go straight again. I think that was weird. So I go to back up. I press down on my controller, and what happens? I go straight again. Uh-oh. I start banging on all the buttons, and I keep going straight. And the next thing you know, I'm standing inside of an admin. There is nothing more frightening than standing inside of an admin. I saw things. I saw the past. I saw the future. I saw things I can't even talk about. What I can talk about is how to manage this if it happens to you. Right? You can notice on your controller, you've got the trackpad, right? And what you can do is you take your thumb and without pressing down, just gently swipe your thumb across the trackpad from one side to the other, right to left, left to right, doesn't make a difference, right? And you swipe your thumb right across the trackpad there, and then you lift it up into the air, cross over to the other side, come down again, and swipe it again, right? So 2 or 3 times of doing this, you go swipe, 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 and then come down in the direction that you want to move, and you'll be moving in the ways that you want to, all right? So that can help a lot with that. All right, another thing that can happen is occasionally, and this is going to happen when you're in a rush, like maybe you got to host an event, maybe you got to moderate an event, maybe you got a hot date. I've heard that can happen in here, no judgments, right? But you're in a rush and you put your headset on, you're like, I got to be in there, I got to get in Altspace. And you find out, all right, that you got this notice in front of you, can't find controller. Now, you know you put a fresh battery in there last night because if your battery in the controller runs out, that can happen. But you know you got a fresh battery in there and you're still getting this message. For some reason, your headset and your controller have stopped speaking to one another. Maybe your controller found out about that secret life your headset's got going on, isn't too happy about it. Maybe, it wants to go to JBeats, whatever that was. Okay, again, you don't want to open portals during events. That's considered like rude in Altspace. You want to press enter or go to or something like that. You don't want to pop that portal, especially in front of everybody like that, because, it's like, oh, everybody's seeing that thing now. All right, so what happens is, I lost my place. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you've got your controllers, like they stop talking to your headset, right? So what you want to do is you've got to remember 2 words from today, all right? Double down. And all that means is if you press the 2 buttons on your controller at the same time, the bottom buttons, and you hold them down for about 4 seconds, this little white light's going to appear on your trackpad. Now, if you're wearing your headset, you're not going to see this. But what you will see is when you lift your thumb back up, you've got your hand back. And then you go into Altspace, you're in the load screen, you're like, man, I am glad I went to that go time. That Michael Forrest knew what he was talking about. He told me to double down and that on time, on time for my event. All right, so if that should happen to you, you're welcome. All right, now, what else we got here? Now, if you're going to notice that Altspace occasionally your screen's going to go dark, all right? This can happen because, well, you see everything in this room, the stage, these slides, the missing poster of Shrub. We miss him, all right? That was my best bit, and he's gone now, all right? We hope to find him again. He used to hold my tools, for those of you who don't know, and they made us change spaces, and, well, we haven't seen him since, and I hope he's okay. But yeah, all this stuff is going to stay inside your headset. So you may back at the campfire, right? And you may not even be thinking about go time, but your headset still is, right? All these cars going by outside, the logo up on the sound booth there, all this stuff, every glass at that bar area is in your headset right now. And when you go back to the campfire, it still will be. And when that memory fills up, right? Even though Altspace has made a lot of improvements to make things more performant, occasionally when that memory fills up, your screen's going to go dark. Right? Now, one of the things you can do is to manage this before it happens. Let's say when this event is over, you turn to your friend and say, hey, what do you want? What do you think? And you go, he was so dynamic and his hair was perfect. I think he conditions it with a plastic resin. And you go, well, don't get carried away. What do you want to do? And your friend goes, let's go to the campfire. All you have to do is say, okay, I'll catch up. Right? And then you press the bottom button on your controller, right? And you'll get that choice to quit or resume. You'll say quit, right? And then you'll restart the app, you come back into Altspace, and your mind will be cleared. Your memory will be cleared out. And then all you have to do is open up your friends list, you hit go to, you arrive at the campfire, the whole process is less than a minute, but now you're choosing when it happens to you. So you get ahead of it before it happens, right? This way your conversation won't be interrupted by you having to say, oh, I can't see, and then you're going to have to re-enter and do all that stuff. You have to restart the app like that. All right, now let's see here. Now I have some building tips for you to go over. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're going a little bit over on time here. If you guys you want any building tips for Altspace, if you do, show me some emojis. We'll do that bit. Otherwise, we'll skip over it. All right, show emojis, hand raises if you want this information. All right, cool. I heard a pop. Some smiles. Okay, another hand there. Okay, cool. We'll do it. So what can happen here is occasionally I moderate for an event called Building Worlds in Altspace, and whenever I'm there, I hear, well, not every time, but a lot of times you'll hear users saying that they can't build in Altspace, so that's too hard. Listen, there's a lot of very accomplished world builders in Altspace who use an Oculus Go to build worlds. All right. So where do they get this opinion from? All right. Well, when people start messing with the world out there, one of the things that can happen if you're on the go is you're going to notice when you go to edit the object, it's moving around like crazy. It can take a little while to start to realize that it's actually your head that's moving the object around. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's really hard to keep a level head in any reality, let alone a virtual one, right? So what you want to do is if you open the world editor, you're going to see at the very bottom it says lock rotation. When you check this checkbox, right, what'll happen now is if you squeeze, you point at an item in the world editor and you squeeze and release that trigger one time, now you can move your hand around to rotate it, right? And then if you squeeze and release it again quickly, it'll lock it into place, right? Now, if you squeeze and hold the trigger on an object, you can move it up, down, left, and right, okay? Or you can carry it around. You know, you can walk around with it like this laser pointer here. What we're going to do here is we're going to walk around. We're going to place this somewhere. Find a good spot for it here. Let's put it right over here like that. Now, if this is the real world, that would be on the floor right now because it's hanging off the edge of the stage, right? Now, what you want to do is you'll go into your world editor there, and you're going to see a list of the items in the space. You find the laser pointer on the list. The next that's going to be a cogwheel. Because on an Oculus Go, when you're building worlds, you just got to get the object close enough to where you want it. Then you open up that cogwheel. And when you open up that cogwheel, you're going to see numbers, right? There's going to be numbers for position, numbers for rotation, numbers for the scale or the size of the object. And you want to change these around. Like, let's say right now the X says it's at 19, right? So let's see what happens. We'll move it to 20, right? And when we move it to 20, it jumps up over here. So now I know going forward, as I'm building this space, anytime I change that X value, if I make it go up, it's going to move in this direction toward the window. If I make the number go down, it's going to move toward this wall over here, right? So, and you know, listen, I know that little keyboard they give us to type on in here, right? It can be a little slow to peck messages out and coordinates and numbers, but you know what? It's just like playing a video game. The first time you're playing a video game, you're thinking about the controllers, right? But after you've been playing it for about a week, you don't think about the controllers anymore. You're thinking about saving the world. You're thinking about crushing your enemies. That's a great way to spend a Wednesday, right? You know, and you know, so that's what you can do. You just do it a little bit more at a time. Before you know it, you'll be building worlds. All right, it gets easier and easier. And brief mention: if you do get into the you're building worlds there, you got to enter the world's beta program first. You can do that through your main menu, right where it says Settings General. You'll see you can enter the beta program, and you'll get a new tab called Worlds, and that'll begin your adventure in building worlds. There's a lot of very gifted Go users that build worlds in Altspace. At the end of this event, we're going to Ravenhall Flight Academy to teach everybody to fly. If you haven't, even if you do know how to fly, it's a great place to check out because it was built on an Oculus Go in less than 2 days. There's a portal there to Lake Ravenhall, which took a lot longer because it's a much bigger world, but that was also built on an Oculus Go. And there's a ton of worlds in Altspace that were built on Oculus Go's from very talented world builders. Okay, now we are going to take your questions now, so I am going to make a raised hand appear on your lower right as if, I got timing on this, as if by magic. There we go. All right, you should see that raise hand button. I have a question, a comment, maybe something, an accessory that you tried that I haven't mentioned, you know, press that raise hand button and we can hear about it. You know, let's see, I'm not seeing it fill up. Sometimes it's a little bit slow. While we're waiting for it to fill up, if you guys are on Twitter and you want to follow us, you can find us at Ravenhall @ Uncanny Valley. I realize it looks like 1_, but it's actually 2. All right, let's see. We got, we have people. Let's see who we got here. We've got Carter. Carter, you're on the air. I get to feel like a radio host when I do that. Carter, what's up? Where are you? Carter.
Right here.
Hey, Carter, what's going on?
Hi, I was wondering if you knew anything about the Oculus Go battery replacements?
Battery replacement, like you have to replace the battery that's inside of it?
Yes.
I've seen some videos on YouTube about people taking it apart and trying to replace it with a higher capacity battery. I've seen that, but I think anytime you're going to open up your device, you can avoid your warranty, you know, and it's generally probably not the safest thing. You got to remember, these things go on your face. If I were to have something like a battery replacement done, I would send it back to Oculus, and I'd write the Oculus at the web support. You know, but what you want to do, it's kind of at your own risk kind of a thing. There are people who modify things and try to get things to go, but every time you do something like that, you're risking your device. And me personally, my devices are extremely important to me because I spend all my time in Altspace, and I wouldn't want to risk losing that. All right, but that's just me. But you can do what you want, Carter. That's cool. All right, let's see. We got Chris has a question or a comment. Oh, actually, wait, Chris, I'll get to you in a second. I actually clicked on ceased, I think that is. Let me see. Where are you? Ceased. Let's see. I'm not seeing you. Okay.
I'll do it.
So ceased peach. You know. So,
Oh,
yeah.
it's pronounced Cass Peach, but with
Cass peach. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
And 59474.
Yeah.
There you go. Just roll stuff for fun.
Sometimes whenever I'm building worlds, I don't necessarily like using with Oculus Go because I usually use Unity and import it through like the website and everything.
You can do that too. Yeah, Unity works great for importing worlds. But if you're just starting out as a world builder, it's neat to be able to get a concept or a sense for what the space actually lays out like in VR. And there's no better way than to do that than actually having your hands on it. And even when you're building in Unity, you still have to place some stuff like the spawn point. Unity doesn't do the spawn point. You got to put that in yourself. And all those little extras, it could be easier to place as kits, so that's a cool thing to do. But cool that you're doing Unity building. That's awesome. All right, let's see. I said that we'd call in Chris. So Chris, you have a question, a comment, anything like that? Where are you, Chris? I lost you.
Hey, I'm over
Where'd
here.
you get? You're over here.
Hey,
What's up? In the back on the red shirt. Nice shirt. Cool. What's going on?
okay. I came in late, so apologies, but I wanted to know if
That's
the
okay.
in-game world building had collaboration enabled or anything.
They don't call it that, but
one.
you could actually do that. Sure. What you do is once you have Worlds beta enabled, if you go to the world you're going to work on, right? Let's say that I want to build a world with Braden here. I would give Braden Terraformer in that world, then we'd both be able to build in it, and we can collaborate that way. So yeah, Altspace is pretty good at that. There is some problems if you're both trying to build at the same time, right? You may have to take turns back and forth because sometimes something weird can happen. Like we had a fish appear in a stone wall, and that didn't work. But because it just suddenly jumped. I was editing what I thought was a rock, and when I pressed enter, right, when I said accept the changes, then all of a sudden there was a big fish in this rock wall, and we were very sad for that fish. But so you may not want to build it at the exact same time, but it is possible. People do it, and sometimes without problems. Okay, let's see here. We have Braden. Braden, what's up? What's going on, Braden?
About the whole building thing. So
Yeah.
whenever I tried building a world once, and I thought I was trying to build like a city, and I
Cool.
thought the buildings that I placed down there like super small.
Okay.
But I thought whenever you accepted the changes or something, it'll expand it, so it was you could walk on it and everything, but it wasn't. Is there a way? Is that supposed to happen, or?
All right. Well, sometimes you got on every item that you place in the world, you have what's called colliders, right? The way I'm able to stand on the stage and not fall through it is if I'm standing on a collider, right? Or if I raced at this wall, oh no, I bumped into it. You see, I'm kind of stopping out here. I'm not actually touching the wall. And that's because the collider is out here for some reason, right? Now, certain objects, if you turn the collider off, you'll be able to pass through it. That can work, right? Also, you can change the scale on your controller by moving left to right while you're gripping it, and that works on both Quest and Go. Or you can actually change the number when you press the cogwheel in the items list. You can change that number, and that'll change the scale or the size of it. And it's a matter of playing with it until you get it right. But yeah, turning the colliders off can actually help with that. But the downside of that is people will be able to walk through it. But if the colliders come out too far and it's not working for you, turn them off because you'll still be able to see the object. All right, and sometimes that can help a lot. Being able to see it. All right, everybody, we are over time by a bit here. So what we are going to do is we're going to head out the back of the room there. We're going to go into that blue light through that blue door, and it's going to take us to Ravenhall Flight Academy. If you want to learn how to fly, see a world that was built on a Go, come on and join us. If you guys have learned anything here today, please share it. That's kind of how we keep this Altspace thing going. And thanks for coming, everybody, and I'll see you next time.